Hello students, today we'll be talking about carbohydrates. Now carbohydrates, as you know, they are referred to as sugars, saccharides, because they have a very sweet taste. They are found in plants, animals, insects, muscles of animals, and they are naturally occurring compounds. So this is the general formula of carbohydrates, and we can understand that they bear different atoms like carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Remember one thing, the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is in 2 is to 1 range, the way it is in water. For example, we have a carbohydrate glucose C6H12O6 is the molecular formula, and you can see from this molecular formula hydrogen and oxygen bear in 2 is to 1 ratio, the way it is in water. Now carbohydrates are also referred to as hydrates of carbon, means carbon atom is hydrated. Carbon atom bears a water molecule. In addition to that, carbohydrates contain nitrogen also, the way it is given in glucosamine. They may contain phosphorus, sulfur, etc. One important point is here, we have compounds like formaldehyde, CH2O. We have acetic acid, CH3COH, lactic acid, CH3CHOH. You can see this formula of formaldehyde CH2O. Similarly, in case of acetic acid C2H4O2, in case of lactic acid C3H6O3, the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is 2 is to 1, the way it is in water. But remember, these are not carbohydrates. They don't bear the properties of carbohydrates. And one more important point is, we have a compound rhamnose. This is the molecular formula C6H12O5, deoxyribose C5H10O4. They do not have hydrogen and oxygen in 2 is to 1 ratio, but they are somewhat carbohydrates. Now, scientific definition of carbohydrates would be like this. They are polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones and their derivatives, or as substances that release one of these compounds upon hydrolysis. Now, this is the scientific definition. Now we would like to classify carbohydrates. Now carbohydrates are basically grouped into two classes. We have simple sugars and complex or compound sugars. So far as simple sugars are concerned, that includes monosaccharides, and so far as compound sugars are considered, that includes oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. Now the classification of carbohydrates into monosaccharides or oligosaccharides or polysaccharides is basically done on the basis of hydrolysis. For example, monosaccharides are those carbohydrates or simple sugars which cannot be hydrolyzed further. Oligosaccharides, upon hydrolysis, they may give 2 to 10 different or same monosaccharide units upon hydrolysis. Polysaccharides can give more than 10 molecules of monosaccharide units upon hydrolysis. Now, for example, in case of oligosaccharides, if they give 2 units of monosaccharides upon hydrolysis, we call them disaccharides. If they give 3 units of monosaccharides upon hydrolysis, we call them trisaccharides. Similarly, if they give 4, we call them tetrasaccharides. If they give 5, we call them pentasaccharides. Disaccharides, most common disaccharides include lactose, maltose and sucrose. Secondly, trisaccharides, that includes rhamnose, gentianose, raffinose, rabinose, maltazose. And tetrasaccharides, stachyose and sucrorodose. And pentasaccharides, verbascose. Now, among the polysaccharides, we have two more groups, homopolysaccharides and heteropolysaccharides. Homopolysaccharides include starch, glycogen, inulin, and cellulose. And heteropolysaccharides includes hyaluronic acid, chondroitin. Now this is example of monosaccharide. This is glucose, this is galactose, this is fructose. These are all monosaccharides. Now we said in the scientific definition, carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones. This is aldehyde group over here. You can find it CHO. So many OH groups are present. 1 OH group, 2 OH group, 3 OH group, 4 OH group. Now you can say they are polyhydroxyaldehydes. This is aldehyde group, functional group. If here we have a ketonic group in case of fructose, C double bond O, this is the ketonic group over here. Rest you can find so many OH group, polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones or their derivatives. Now we'd like to group monosaccharides. Now monosaccharides can be further grouped on the basis of type number of carbon atoms they contain. Monosaccharides, no doubt they are simple sugars. They contain a free aldehyde or ketonic group. This is the general formula written over here. They cannot be hydrolyzed further into smaller unit. This thing we need to remember in mind. So on the basis of number of carbon atoms in case of monosaccharides, for example, if they contain 3, we call them trioses. This is the molecular formula. Example is glycerose. Secondly, if they contain aldehyde group, we call them aldo sugars. For example, glycerose contains an aldo group. It is known as aldo sugar. On the contrary, if they contain a keto group, we call them keto sugars. Example is dihydroxyacetone phosphate, but it bears 3 carbon atoms. Similarly, tetroses means those monosaccharides which contain 4 carbon atoms. Example is erythrose. This is aldo sugar bearing aldehyde group. In case of keto sugars, it is erythrulose, bears a keto group. When it contains 5 carbon, pentoses, C5H10O5. Example is ribose, it is a aldo sugar bearing 5 carbon atoms. Ribulose, it is a keto sugar bearing a ketonic group. Hexoses means carbon atoms present are 6 in number. Example is glucose is a aldo sugar bearing aldehyde group. Fructose is a keto sugar, a hexose bearing a keto group. Similarly, heptoses bearing 7 carbon atoms. Example is glucoheptose, a aldo sugar, and pseudoheptulose is a keto sugar bearing an ketonic group. Thank you.